All right, here's the top 5 in DEI. So I want to start at the very top before I go into the top 5 movements in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Where we stand right now is there is no law. There isn't a ban against DEI or an EEOC ruling to cease and desist diversity, equity, and inclusion right now. So the law does not apply, nor does it exist with respect to corporate. So right now, what is happening in corporate America is corporations being pressure tested in terms of the commitments made on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the fold or the reversity is as a result of legal concerns and perhaps corporate counsel advising on potential lawsuits. And here's what I'm going to say. If there is the potential of lawsuits or legal ramifications for being pro DEI, just know the way that things are unfolding, there is the potential to also see lawsuits for those who are anti DEI. And that is unfolding right now. But here's my top 5. In terms of what things you might be thinking about if you're having to report on diversity, equity, and inclusion, if you're having to defend on diversity, equity, and inclusion, if you're finding your role or your voice being challenged when you bring up diversity, equity, and inclusion. Here are 5, my top 5 that you might consider in any report out, presentations, and such. So first, I'll talk about the business case. What is the business case, the current business case for DEI? There is a report, Litters Inclusion, Equity, and Diversity C-Suite Survey Report. It was completed by 320 C-Suite executives across the U.S. This was released in January of this year. 91% say the ruling, that would be the affirmative action ruling, has not lessened their prioritization of DEI. 57% say their organizations have expanded their I&D commitment and their level of activity. And then 59% believe backlash towards diversity programs, not that they believed it, but they've seen that the backlash has increased since the decision. But nonetheless, they are still committed. Number 2, according to, this is an EY belonging barometer, 63% of respondents to this across generations currently prioritize DEI in choosing a company, so in choosing an employer. So that would be my number 2, and this is as of September of 2023. My number 3, of the 15 S&P 500 companies that have released their ESG reports so far in 2024, all continue to reference DEI. So it's still in the reporting, and that's as of February of this year. Number 3, so who is anti and who is pro? So anti-DEI in June of 2023, there were 14 Republican attorney generals that sent a letter to CEOs demanding that corporate CEOs cease and desist on DEI. And then my number 4, pro DEI. So that would be, there were 20 or so attorney generals who wrote a counter to corporate CEOs and said, we are for, and we're going to run air cover on your behalf, and reminding CEOs of their commitment with regard to workplace and creating a place where all people feel welcome and would be free from discrimination. My number 5 is the EEOC. So of course the EEOC is pro DEI. The EEOC released a statement. It remains lawful for employers to implement diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility programs that seek to ensure workers of all backgrounds are afforded equal opportunity. So the net of this is specifically the diversity, equity, and inclusion in line with the law should speak to specifically racial inequities, disparities within the corporation. And so that is the clause, and that is the exception to the rule. Dee C. Marshall, my top 5 in DEI.